Did you know the UK has just passed a wave of powerful new laws that could change how you work, travel, rent, and even use the internet? From protecting your kids online, to cracking down on scams, giving renters more security, and even shaping the future of self-driving cars, these laws will touch almost every part of daily life. And trust me, law number 7 is so controversial, people can't stop debating it. Stick with me, because by the end, you'll know exactly how these 10 new UK laws could reshape your future in ways you never imagined. Number 10. Environment Act Implementation Phase. The Environment Act has now entered its critical implementation phase, turning ambitious promises into enforceable action. This law was created to tackle some of the UK's most pressing environmental challenges, including air pollution, waste management, and biodiversity loss. During its rollout, the Act sets legally binding targets for improving air quality, protecting natural habitats, and reducing reliance on harmful single-use plastics. One of its standout features is the introduction of new watchdog powers under the Office for Environmental Protection, which monitors whether the government and industries are meeting their obligations. By embedding environmental protection directly into the law, the UK is making it clear that safeguarding the climate and natural resources is not optional, but a legal duty. A central part of the Environment Act is its focus on biodiversity and nature recovery. Local councils and developers are now required to ensure a biodiversity net gain in construction projects. This means every new housing estate, road, or commercial site must leave the natural environment better than before, whether by creating wildlife corridors, planting more trees, or restoring wetlands. The Act also establishes stronger rules around waste reduction and recycling, including new systems for deposit return schemes on bottles and stricter responsibilities for manufacturers to manage packaging waste. These measures are designed not only to reduce landfill, but also to encourage a circular economy, where resources are reused and recycled instead of being thrown away. For ordinary citizens, the Environment Act could bring noticeable changes to daily life. Cleaner air standards will push cities to adopt low-emission zones and greener transport options, while communities may see more investment in parks and green spaces. Supporters argue this law is a once-in-a-generation chance to reverse decades of environmental damage and secure a healthier planet for future generations. Critics, however, worry about the costs for businesses and whether local authorities have the resources to enforce such ambitious targets. Still, the implementation phase is a historic milestone, making the UK one of the first countries to embed climate action and biodiversity protection directly into domestic law. The Environment Act is more than just policy. It is a roadmap for a cleaner, greener, and more sustainable future. Number 9. Animal Welfare Sentencing Act. The Animal Welfare Sentencing Act represents a major leap forward in the UK's commitment to protecting animals from cruelty and neglect. Before this law, the maximum prison sentence for severe cases of animal abuse was only 6 months, which many campaigners argued was far too lenient. With this act, the maximum penalty has increased to 5 years in prison, making it one of the toughest animal protection laws in Europe. This change was driven by public demand after a series of shocking cases highlighted how weak the old punishments were. The act covers all domesticated pets, farm animals, and even wild animals in certain situations, ensuring that anyone guilty of causing unnecessary suffering faces real consequences. It sends a powerful message that cruelty to animals will no longer be tolerated as a minor offence, but treated as a serious crime. One of the most important elements of the Animal Welfare Act is how it empowers courts and enforcement agencies. Judges now have the flexibility to issue harsher sentences, including longer prison terms, unlimited fines, and bans on keeping animals. This makes it easier to target repeat offenders and individuals involved in organised animal abuse, such as dogfighting rings or illegal breeding operations. By increasing the severity of punishment, the government hopes to act as a deterrent, discouraging potential offenders before cruelty occurs. The law also strengthens cooperation between the police, local councils, and animal welfare charities like the RSPCA, giving them better tools to investigate and prosecute offenders effectively. For the public, the Animal Welfare Sentencing Act reflects growing awareness about the importance of animal rights. Pets are considered family members in millions of homes, and the law ensures their protection is taken as seriously as human welfare. Supporters argue that harsher sentencing will help create a culture where kindness, responsibility, and compassion toward animals are the norm. Critics, however, note that tougher penalties must be matched with resources for enforcement, otherwise the law may fall short in practice. Still, this act marks a turning point in the UK's relationship with animals. It proves that protecting those who cannot speak for themselves is not just an ethical choice, but a legal priority, shaping a more humane society for the future. Number 8. Strikes. Minimum Service Levels Act. The Strikes Minimum Service Levels Act is a major law that directly affects how industrial action operates in the UK. In recent years, the country has seen waves of strikes across transport, healthcare, education, and postal services, often leaving the public caught in the middle. This law introduces a new rule. Even during strikes, certain essential services must continue to operate at a minimum level. For example, rail workers may strike, but train companies must still provide a limited number of services to keep commuters moving. Similarly, in healthcare, hospitals must maintain critical staff so that patient safety is not endangered. The Act aims to balance the right to strike with the need to protect the wider public from complete disruption. Supporters argue that the Minimum Service Levels Act provides fairness and stability in times of industrial conflict. They believe that while workers deserve the right to protest, the public should not suffer total shutdowns of critical services. This law gives the government power to set service requirements, and unions are required to ensure that enough workers remain on duty to meet them. If they fail, employers can take legal action, and individual workers may lose legal protections if they refuse to comply. The government presents it as a safeguard that prevents essential sectors from being used as bargaining chips in disputes, ensuring that the country keeps running even during periods of unrest. However, critics say the Act undermines workers' rights and could weaken the impact of strikes altogether. Unions argue that strikes are meant to create disruption to push for meaningful negotiations, and by diluting that impact, this law tilts power heavily toward employers and the state. There are also fears that it could increase tension between workers and management, leading to longer disputes rather than quick resolutions. For ordinary people, the law promises more reliable access to transport and healthcare during strikes, but it also raises questions about whether workers are being stripped of their most powerful tool for change. Ultimately, the Strikes Minimum Service Levels Act highlights the ongoing struggle to balance public safety with workers' freedoms, making it one of the most hotly debated laws in the UK today. Number 7. Illegal Migration Act. The Illegal Migration Act is one of the most controversial and widely debated laws recently passed in the UK. Its central aim is to address the growing issue of people entering the country through irregular routes, such as crossing the English Channel in small boats. Under this law, anyone arriving illegally is no longer allowed to make an asylum claim in the UK. Instead, they can be detained and removed either to their home country or to a designated safe third country. Supporters argue that this will help reduce the number of dangerous journeys, break the business model of human traffickers, and restore fairness to the immigration system. The government has presented it as a way to regain control over borders, ensuring that legal migration routes remain the priority. However, the Illegal Migration Act has sparked intense criticism from human rights groups, charities, and even members of parliament. Many argue that the law risks violating international agreements, such as the UN Refugee Convention, which gives people the right to seek asylum if they are fleeing persecution. Critics warn that vulnerable individuals, including children and victims of trafficking, may be disproportionately affected. The Act also introduces strict detention powers, giving the government authority to hold people for longer periods before removal. This raises concerns about overcrowding in detention centres and the overall humanitarian impact of the policy. The debate has polarised the public, with some praising it as a firm stance on illegal immigration, while others see it as undermining the UK's tradition of compassion and refuge. For ordinary citizens, the Illegal Migration Act is likely to influence public discussions about identity, fairness, and security, while supporters hope it will ease pressure on housing, healthcare, and public services. Opponents fear it could damage the UK's international reputation and fuel social tensions. Regardless of where people stand, there's no denying that this law represents a turning point in the national immigration debate. It highlights the difficult balance between border control and human rights, a balance that every modern democracy struggles to achieve. Number 7 is not just another law, it's a powerful reminder of how deeply politics, morality, and security can collide in shaping a nation's future. Number 6. Digital Markets, Competition and Consumers Act. The Digital Markets, Competition and Consumers Act is a powerful new law aimed at protecting people in an increasingly digital economy. For years, consumers have faced problems like subscription traps, fake reviews, misleading ads, and scam websites, with very little recourse. This act gives regulators unprecedented powers to crack down on companies that engage in unfair practices. Businesses that mislead customers through false pricing, hidden charges, or deceptive marketing can now face huge fines and enforcement actions. The law also introduces strict rules for online platforms, requiring them to be transparent about how they use personal data, targeted ads, and recommendation algorithms. By putting consumer rights at the forefront, this act ensures that people can shop, browse, and subscribe online with far greater trust and confidence. One of the most significant features of the act is its focus on subscription services. Millions of people sign up for free trials only to be trapped in complicated cancellation processes. This law forces companies to make sign-ups clear and cancellations easy, protecting customers from being locked into services they don't want or can't afford. Another critical measure targets fake reviews, which have misled countless consumers into buying poor-quality products or services. Platforms like Amazon, eBay, and Trustpilot must now take active steps to verify reviews and remove fraudulent ones. By cleaning up the online marketplace, the act strengthens competition and ensures that honest businesses are rewarded while dishonest ones are held accountable. For everyday people, the Digital Markets, Competition and Consumers Act means a fairer and more transparent online experience. Consumers will save money by avoiding scams, businesses will face pressure to improve quality and service, and regulators will finally have the legal tools to act swiftly against digital misconduct. Supporters argue that this act is long overdue, given the scale of online commerce and its impact on society. Critics, however, fear it may place heavy burdens on smaller companies struggling to comply with the rules. Still, the central message is clear. The UK is no longer treating digital markets as the Wild West. Instead, it is enforcing fairness, accountability, and protection, ensuring the digital age works in favour of the consumer. Number 5. Energy Act. The Energy Act is one of the most ambitious laws recently passed, designed to accelerate the UK's journey toward net zero emissions. With growing concerns over climate change, rising energy bills, and reliance on fossil fuels, this act sets out a long-term framework for a cleaner and more sustainable future. It gives the government new powers to expand renewable energy projects, such as offshore wind farms, solar power, and hydrogen development, while also investing in nuclear energy as a stable backup source. One of the most significant goals of the act is to boost energy security, so that households and businesses are less exposed to global market shocks like those seen during the recent energy crisis. By modernizing infrastructure and supporting innovation, the Energy Act seeks to create a system that is not only greener, but also more affordable and reliable. A standout feature of the Energy Act is its focus on encouraging household-level change. It introduces stricter rules for energy efficiency in new buildings, ensuring that homes are built with insulation, smart technology, and eco-friendly designs. For existing properties, the law supports upgrades through grants and incentives, making it easier for families to switch to heat pumps, solar panels, and low-carbon heating systems. Businesses are also targeted, with new regulations pushing large companies to cut carbon emissions across their supply chains. By embedding these changes at both the national and local levels, the Act creates a ripple effect that can transform how communities consume and save energy. This not only reduces pollution, but also lowers long-term energy costs, giving households more stability during uncertain economic times. The Energy Act is not without controversy, as critics argue that the timeline for transitioning away from fossil fuels is too ambitious and could lead to higher short-term costs for families. Others question the reliance on nuclear power, pointing to safety concerns and waste management. Supporters, however, believe this act is essential for protecting the planet while securing the UK's energy future. By balancing innovation with responsibility, the law sets a clear path toward a greener economy, one where clean energy is no longer optional, but the foundation of daily life. The Energy Act is not just about reducing emissions, it's about reshaping the way the UK powers its homes, businesses, and future generations. Number 4. Automated Vehicles Act. The Automated Vehicles Act marks a bold step into the future of transportation in the UK. For years, the idea of self-driving cars felt like science fiction, but this new law lays the legal foundation to make it a reality on British roads. The Act introduces strict rules around safety, liability, and accountability, ensuring that autonomous vehicles can operate without putting the public at risk. This means before any self-driving car hits the streets, it must pass rigorous safety tests and meet government-approved standards. The law also clarifies who is responsible in case of accidents, shifting liability away from drivers and onto the manufacturers or operators of the technology. For commuters, the future could mean fewer accidents, less congestion, and a smoother, more efficient travel experience. Another key part of the Automated Vehicles Act is how it integrates these cars into the existing road network. The law allows for the rollout of driverless taxis, delivery vans, and even buses, but under strict government supervision. For example, companies must provide real-time data on vehicle performance, traffic flow, and potential hazards, which regulators will monitor closely. This level of oversight not only improves public trust but also encourages innovation by setting clear boundaries. Imagine ordering a taxi that arrives without a driver or receiving your groceries from an autonomous van. The Act paves the way for these scenarios to become part of daily life. At the same time, it ensures that Britain remains at the forefront of global transport technology, competing with countries like the US and Japan in this cutting-edge sector. For ordinary citizens, the potential benefits are huge, but the law also raises important questions. Will self-driving cars make human drivers obsolete? How will they affect jobs in transport and logistics? While supporters argue that automation will reduce accidents caused by human error and help the environment by optimizing traffic flow, critics fear it may increase unemployment and widen the digital divide. Still, the Automated Vehicles Act represents a transformative moment in UK law, signaling a future where technology and transportation work hand in hand. Whether exciting or intimidating, it sets the stage for a revolution in how people move, work, and live. Number 3. Worker Protection. Harassment at Work Act. The Worker Protection Act is a groundbreaking law aimed at tackling one of the most persistent issues in modern workplaces: harassment. For decades, employees have reported incidents of verbal abuse, sexual harassment, bullying, and intimidation. Yet many cases were dismissed because employers were not held fully responsible. This act changes everything. It introduces a legal duty on employers to take proactive steps to prevent harassment before it even happens, not just respond after damage is done. That means workplaces must now create safer environments through training, monitoring, and clear anti-harassment policies. Instead of harassment being brushed aside as an unfortunate incident, it is now recognized as a serious breach of workplace law that can lead to severe consequences. One of the most striking aspects of this law is that it doesn't just cover direct harassment from managers or colleagues. It also includes third-party harassment, such as abusive customers or clients. Imagine a retail worker facing constant verbal abuse from shoppers, or a nurse dealing with harassment from patients. Previously, employers could claim it was out of their control. Now, under the Worker Protection Act, they are obligated to protect staff even in these scenarios. If companies fail, they face heavy fines and legal action, sending a clear signal that no form of harassment will be tolerated. This shifts responsibility squarely onto organizations, forcing them to rethink how they manage staff safety and well-being. For ordinary workers, this law represents a huge cultural shift. Employees should feel more confident about reporting harassment without fear of being ignored or retaliated against. Employers, meanwhile, must invest in training programs, reporting systems, and workplace monitoring to stay compliant. Supporters argue this act will lead to more inclusive, respectful, and productive workplaces, while critics worry smaller businesses may struggle with the new obligations. Still, the overall aim is clear. Every worker deserves to feel safe, respected, and valued in their job. By making harassment prevention a legal requirement instead of a vague corporate promise, the Worker Protection Act sets a powerful precedent for the future of work in the UK. Number 2. Renters Reform Bill. The Renters Reform Bill has been described as the most significant change to the UK's rental housing system in a generation. For years, tenants have lived under the shadow of Section 21 no-fault evictions, which allowed landlords to remove tenants with little notice and no reason. This bill abolishes Section 21, giving millions of renters the security and stability they have been demanding. Imagine finally signing a tenancy agreement and knowing you cannot be forced out without a clear, justified reason. That is the new reality for many families. This law is designed to rebalance power between landlords and tenants, ensuring that people renting homes are treated with the same fairness and dignity as homeowners. The bill doesn't just stop at ending unfair evictions. It introduces a series of reforms to make renting more transparent, predictable, and affordable. For example, landlords must follow stricter rules before raising rents, protecting tenants from sudden and unreasonable price hikes. It also simplifies tenancy structures, moving towards a single flexible tenancy model that adapts to people's needs without trapping them in outdated agreements. Another key change is the introduction of a property ombudsman, giving tenants a straightforward way to resolve disputes without lengthy and expensive court battles. These measures collectively aim to improve the quality of life for the UK's 11 million private renters, while still respecting landlords' ability to manage their properties fairly. Of course, the Renters Reform Bill has sparked strong debates. Landlords argue that tighter rules may discourage investment in the rental market, potentially reducing housing supply. On the other hand, tenants groups believe this law finally addresses years of insecurity and inequality in renting. By shifting the focus from profit to people's rights, the government hopes to build a rental system that feels more like a home and less like a gamble. For ordinary renters, this could mean the difference between being constantly anxious about eviction notices and being able to put down roots in a community. Ultimately, the Renters Reform Bill represents a transformative step toward creating a rental sector that is fairer, safer, and more balanced for everyone. Number 1. Online Safety Act. The Online Safety Act is one of the most talked about laws in the UK right now, and for good reason. For years, people have worried about toxic content, cyberbullying, and child exploitation online, with many feeling that social media companies were not doing enough. This new law places legal responsibility directly on platforms like Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to monitor, detect, and remove harmful material before it causes damage. That includes hate speech, self-harm content, scams, and dangerous misinformation. The law is designed not just to clean up the online space, but to make it a safer digital environment for children and vulnerable groups who spend hours navigating the internet every day. Imagine logging on and knowing that toxic material is being removed in real time. That's the vision this act wants to achieve. Beyond simply policing content, the Online Safety Act also forces tech companies to be transparent about how their algorithms work. For example, platforms now have to reveal how their systems promote certain content, especially material that can influence mental health, political views, or purchasing behavior. This level of accountability is groundbreaking because it shifts power away from corporations and gives it back to the public and regulators. The Act also introduces strict penalties, with fines reaching into the billions for companies that fail to comply. This signals a clear message: the UK government is no longer treating online safety as an afterthought, but as a matter of public protection, just as important as laws governing roads or workplaces. For everyday people, this means a noticeable difference in the way they experience the internet. Parents can expect stronger safeguards for their children, while adults will see a reduction in scams and misleading content. But the law also sparks a big debate. How do we balance freedom of speech with safety regulations? Some worry this act could lead to over-censorship, where valuable discussions are silenced in the name of protection. Others believe it's a small price to pay for shielding society from online harms. Either way, this law marks a historic turning point in how the UK shapes the future of its digital world. The passing of these 10 new UK laws shows just how quickly society is evolving, and how government policies are adapting to meet new challenges. From the digital world to the workplace, from protecting animals and the environment to reshaping immigration and housing, each law carries the power to affect millions of lives in very real ways. What makes them so important is not just the rules written on paper, but how they will actually shape daily experiences, the homes we live in, the jobs we work, the services we rely on, and even the freedoms we debate as a society. Some of these laws, like the Animal Welfare Act and the Renters Reform Bill, have been widely welcomed as long overdue protections. Others, such as the Illegal Migration Act and the Strikes Act, remain deeply divisive, sparking passionate discussions about rights, fairness, and national priorities. Yet together, they highlight a common theme. The UK is entering a new chapter where safety, accountability, and sustainability are at the forefront of policymaking. Whether you agree or disagree with each change, one thing is clear: these laws are not just words in Parliament, they are policies that will shape the future of Britain. Now it's your turn. Which of these 10 laws do you believe will change the UK the most, and which one do you strongly disagree with? Share your thoughts in the comments, we'd love to hear them. Don't forget to check out our previous video for more insights, and if you value the effort we put into bringing you this content, please support us by subscribing. It's just one click, but it means the world to us.